You're listening to an Ono Media podcast.
Good morning, and thanks for joining me for Rise and Crime, your morning caffeine hit all about crime. I'm Mama Jules, and let's start this podcast in Minnesota, the land of hockey, and as of right now, the undefeated Vikings. But this story is about hockey and a married mother's propensity to mess around with hockey players. 38-year-old Allison Chardon was a married mother of two who worked as a restaurant server and also enjoyed singing opera. That's not the typical hobby I report here at Rise and Crime, which led me to try and find her singing opera on the internet. I found an ABC paper publication touting that she would be performing a small solo in the Minnesota Opera's production of Turandot. Now, this news article reported that Allison received a bachelor's degree in both music and communications from Concordia University, and then a master's degree in vocal performance from the University of Minnesota. A deeper dive led me to a Mozart piece she performed that scored her a Schubert Club student scholarship. Here, just give it a brief listen. But that solo and that scholarship that she scored, that was back in 2011. And in January of 2024, Allison is admitting to scoring in a different way. On January 14th, Allison and her husband and her two children were doing a bit of a staycation, spending some time at a local hotel. But here's the weird part. Allison and her husband were in the middle of a divorce. Back on December 18th, so just 1 month prior, Allison's husband, Anthony, had filed for divorce. And maybe they were just trying to rekindle the romance or maybe make some memories as a family, but it didn't seem to be going well. Anthony and the two kids had left the pool and hot tub area of the hotel and returned back to their room. Allison had stayed behind, relaxing in the hot tub and chatting up two 15-year-old boys that were visiting Minnesota from Colorado. They were on a youth hockey trip. At some point, Anthony entered the pool area again, asking, or maybe demanding, that Allison come up to the room. And she must not have agreed because it is reported that Anthony yelled across the pool area that if Allison didn't come up to the room immediately, then the marriage was over. Now, we all know I wouldn't be telling you this story if she had left the hot tub and gone upstairs. She didn't. And according to authorities, she instead chatted up the youth hockey players, explaining her marital problems and why her husband would yell that phrase at her. She allegedly told the boys that she had a thing for hockey players and that she had previously cheated on her husband with an adult hockey player. Now, after some time and the exchanging of contact info, the boys left the area and they went to their room. And it seems Allison must have done the same. Authorities say she then began Snapchatting one of the 15-year-old boys, saying that her and Anthony had gotten into an even bigger argument, and so she boldly asked if she could sleep in their room. When she entered the boys' hotel room, they began talking about, quote, sex and stuff. Now, that's the phrase the boys used to describe the topic of conversation between Allison and the two teens. They say Allison got into the bed with the boys and asked them if they were sexually active. Now, this dirty talk led to Allison allegedly performing sex acts on the boys and her asking the boys to reciprocate. During these events, Allison allegedly told the boys she was old enough to be their mother. She also allegedly asked the boys for a condom before expressing that she wanted to have sex with them. The boys told authorities it was a high-pressure sell by Allison and that she was using phrases like, "Let's just do more," and "You already have a 38-year-old woman in your bed. Don't you want more?" Now, one other teen boy was present during the visit and the alleged acts, but he did not participate. One of the boys told the authorities that he really didn't want to do the acts, but that he said yes anyway, mostly because he didn't know how to say no to the adult. Eventually, Allison left the room. The next day, wanting to forget what happened, the boys headed to their hockey game. But guess who showed up to watch? Allison. And during the game, she texted the boys. It seems she wasn't able to tell if she had the right skating rink, and she wanted them to know she was there. One of the boys told the authorities that he became very nervous, so nervous that he was shaking on the bench. He explained the situation as, quote, very creepy. When the boys returned to Colorado, it seems Allison continued making contact via social media. And by this point, she begged the boys not to tell authorities what had happened. One text from Allison read something like this: I will do or say anything you want. Just don't tell the police or report what happened. One of the boys, well, they just flat out blocked Allison from their social media. And despite her pleas, authority found out about the abuse. On February 1st of this year, Allison was arrested. During her initial interrogation interview, she told the detectives that the boys had been the ones who had invited her to their room, and that she only accepted the invite to get away from her angry husband. During the interview, she did admit to having sexual contact with 2 of the 3 boys, and then she also allegedly told authorities that she did ask if anyone had a condom, but that she didn't intend to actually use the condom or go through with the complete act. She told detectives that when things started to progress with the boys, she had a moment where she stopped and thought to herself, I shouldn't go through with this. She then said it was evident that one of the boys was becoming very uncomfortable and that she shouldn't go all the way with them. Well, since the arrest, Allison pled not guilty in May of this year. But then, on Friday, she agreed to a plea deal with prosecutors. She has now pled guilty and admitted to third-degree criminal sexual conduct and also to engaging in sexual penetration with anyone under 18 years of age. She will be sentenced on January 10th of next year, and she could face up to 8 months in jail. Before she took the plea deal, she could have been found guilty and faced up to 15 years in prison and have a $30,000 fine. So not a shabby trade-off there by pleading guilty. I would love to know what you think. Should she serve more than a potential 8 months for coercing the boys the way she did? Go ahead and leave me a comment. Now to this story from across the pond that has a British doctor in hot water for allegedly attempting to murder his mother's boyfriend. But he didn't do it with a gun and not with a knife. No, he allegedly used a flesh-eating bacterial disease. So let's set up the players here. We have Jenny Leung, who lives with her longtime boyfriend, 72-year-old Patrick O'Hara, and they live in Newcastle, England. Jenny also has a son, 53-year-old Dr. Thomas Kwan, who is a successful GP and a partner at the Happy House Surgery Center in Sunderland, England. So why does Thomas not like his mom's boyfriend? I give you just one guess. The inheritance. At least that's what authorities in England are saying was the motive for Thomas to poison Patrick. It seems Jenny and her son weren't even speaking much these days. Estranged because Jenny had told Thomas she planned to leave her home to Patrick if she were to die before him. Now, here's what I'm understanding. In England, a certified nurse can arrive at your home and give you either a COVID shot or a COVID booster. You schedule the time, the nurse shows up, and you're good to go. This at-home care is part of the NHS healthcare system in England, which is a publicly funded organization that provides a vast array of health services. And a man as old as Patrick, well, he would most likely have received this care for free. He just needed to schedule an appointment. Now, armed with the knowledge of the universal healthcare system, Thomas, pretending to be a nurse with the NHS, emailed Patrick and wrote, "Hey, it's time for your COVID booster." And Patrick emailed back writing, "Let's get this scheduled." Now, this was the beginning of his orchestrated plan to harm Patrick. On January 22nd of this year, Thomas visited his mother's home, dressed in disguise, pretending to be a community nurse on a home visit with the intent of administering a COVID booster shot. Wearing a hat, a surgical mask, gloves, and tinted eyeglasses, Thomas rang the bell. When Patrick answered the door, Thomas used a broken English Asian accent to disguise his voice. Thomas had even forged NHS documents. Now, this next part has me asking how long the son and mother had been estranged, because while disguised, he took his mother's blood pressure and walked her through the standard questionnaire form. He did the same exact thing for Patrick. He then said he felt comfortable administering the COVID booster to the two. That's when Thomas drew up in the syringe the serum of flesh-eating bacteria and injected it into Patrick's upper arm. Patrick immediately reacted in pain to the shot, and maybe that made Thomas nervous because he hastily packed up his things and left his mother's home. Finally, at this point, Jenny said to Patrick that the nurse was the same height as her son and that he even reminded her of her son. When the pain didn't diminish, Patrick contacted his GP at the Freeman Hospital to just kind of check in, ask questions about how the visit should have gone and if he should be feeling the pain and symptoms after that booster shot. Staff at the Freeman Hospital said they had never heard of this nurse or this part of the NHS. Staff also said he should not be exhibiting those symptoms from a mere COVID booster. On the recommendation of his doctor, Patrick made his way to the Royal Victoria Infirmary, where the caregivers were initially baffled by his symptoms. For several weeks, Patrick was admitted to the ICU in extreme pain. After running multiple tests, doctors determined that Patrick was suffering from necrotizing fasciitis, or in other words, a disease that eats away his flesh. Over the next few weeks, Patrick had multiple surgeries to remove dead tissue from his upper arm. Well, now we're caught up to last week because Thomas, well, he's accused of harming Patrick, and he went before a trial in England. Now, at the trial that was held in the Newcastle Crown Court, prosecutor Peter Makepeace argued that Thomas had hatched an extraordinary and intricate plot to kill Patrick. And I just got to hold on here. We have to pause. The prosecutor's name is Makepeace. You can't make these things up. What a perfect job for this guy. Well, during the trial, Makepeace introduced to the court that Thomas had forged NHS letters and also created an NHS ID under the name Raj Patel. He even, according to Makepeace, uploaded a picture of himself in a wig with fake facial hair. Thomas allegedly also took 4 days off work to complete his preparations and visit his mother's home. Now, prior to the visit, prosecutors allege he placed a fake license plate on his car, and Makepeace said he also booked a hotel room under a fake name. CCTV footage showed a man in a long coat, a hat, and blue surgical gloves and a clinical mask leaving the hotel on the morning of January 22nd. Makepeace also said Thomas thought so far ahead that he removed his SIM card from his cell phone and inserted a different card before calling Patrick to confirm the appointment. Okay, all of this makes sense if you're trying to commit a crime like poisoning, but you have to get a hold of the poisons. Well, Thomas had that part covered as well. He created a fake company just to order the toxic chemicals that he allegedly injected into Patrick's arm. Now, all of this evidence was uncovered when authorities searched Thomas's home and seized the computer. That computer that he used to make the fake documents and to start a fake company and to take the fake photo and also to order the dangerous toxins. Now, the search of the home allowed authorities to seize numerous chemicals, including liquid mercury, thallium, sulfuric acid, arsenic, and iodomethane. The chemicals were stored in Thomas's garage. In the search, authorities also discovered raw ingredients for making ricin, which is a highly potent toxin that can be fatal if inhaled or ingested or even injected. Inside the home, they found recipes for dangerous chemical cocktails, and on the computer were multiple digital books that referenced poisons and criminal investigations that involved poisons. Makepeace alleged Thomas even had death manuals that have been used by terrorists. The search resulted in the discovery of a syringe loaded with iodomethane, which could be the chemical used to allegedly poison Patrick. The forensic audit of the computer resulted in the discovery of nearly 100 searches about iodomethane between the dates of January 6th and January 22nd of this year. The alleged poisoning happened on the 22nd. Makepeace told the court this week that Thomas even had a backup plan. He had allegedly created a letter from a fake charity that offered Patrick free drinks and meals. Okay, presumably, if this poisoning didn't work by showing up and giving the COVID booster or the fake COVID booster, Thomas could deliver poisoned food to Patrick. That seems to be the indication from Makepeace, at least. And there's one more thing. Makepeace told the court that Thomas, at some point, had installed a spyware on his mother's computer, which allowed him to access programs on that computer. And one of those programs? The Home Security System app. Makepeace said Thomas was monitoring Patrick and Jenny, their comings and their goings, and their activities within the home. Okay, here's the deal about this trial. Thomas does not deny injecting Patrick with a harmful substance. He's already pled guilty to the charge of administering a noxious substance. But he was claiming he didn't intend to kill Patrick. He only wanted to make him uncomfortable. So, the beginning of this trial is addressing the attempted murder charge and also the charge of causing grievous bodily harm with intent. Well, just hours into the initial information that was given to the court, Thomas went ahead and changed his mind, and he pled guilty to the remaining charges. Detective Chief Inspector Jason Henry said the plea was changed by Thomas, most likely because of the overwhelming evidence he was facing. Thomas will be sentenced at a later date. And now to this story out of Utah, where a father who was a decorated military member has gone missing. And now his wife has been arrested for his murder. 51-year-old Matthew Johnson was a decorated member of the United States Military Special Operations Unit. On September 23rd, Matthew didn't show for work with the Utah National Guard. Now, this isn't a guy who doesn't show for work, not with his personality type. And that had people scrambling, especially those who knew about his personal life. See, Matthew is married to 41-year-old Jennifer Gledhill, and the two have 3 children together. But this marriage was clearly not bliss. The couple was engaged in a contentious divorce that had been filed for by Jennifer in July of this year. While the divorce was working its way through mediation and the court system, in August, Jennifer filed a temporary protective order against her husband, claiming she feared for her safety. But the order didn't stick. A court commissioner ruled that there was no evidence of abuse, even though Jennifer submitted video footage and text messages to the court. My guess is that the texts and arguments didn't rise to the court's determination of safety issues. Now, the court documents do acknowledge that the couple's relationship was highly dysfunctional, with both Jennifer and Matthew engaging in confrontational behavior. The commissioner noted that the request for the protective order appeared to be a litigation tactic in their ongoing divorce and custody dispute. This further complicated the already sticky situation. Now, a while back, I spoke with a county sheriff this was about a month ago, and it was about a different case here in Idaho. And we actually discussed that some attorneys advise their clients to automatically file to seek a protective order, noting it gives them kind of like a leg up in the custody situations. Now, that's just one sheriff's opinion in a conversation that I had, but this court commissioner seems to be seconding that theory in the case of Matthew and Jennifer. So on September 16th, a permanent protective order was denied, just 1 week before Matthew didn't show for work. And here's the deal about that September 23rd date of work that Matthew didn't show for. It's a Monday, And others in Matthew's life hadn't heard from him since Friday night. That leaves 2+ days where foul play could have occurred and where Matthew could have gotten a head start on maybe voluntarily making himself scarce. But when investigators started digging on that Monday when he was reported missing, and then they continued digging throughout the week, they found some disturbing details about Jennifer and her decisions surrounding the potential day of disappearance. One of those being that on Tuesday, one day after Matthew didn't show for work, Jennifer ordered a new mattress to be delivered. That mattress was delivered on Thursday. Before the new mattress arrived, authorities believe Jennifer disposed of the old mattress. When police were searching the home, they claim they found signs of a, quote, cleanup, but they believe those efforts didn't get rid of all of the blood, and they're now saying they found trace amounts of blood in the home, like a small blood stain under the bed, and some blood on the bed frame. They also say they can prove the wall near the bed was bleached. They then went on to document that they think it's fishy that other items are missing from the home, like the electronic devices. Now, although all of this seems kind of red flaggy, it isn't enough to arrest someone, especially without a body. So Jennifer said, "Hey, let me give you something to work with." And she went and confessed to an informant about her husband's murder. Jennifer told the informant that she shot Matthew in the head while he was lying in the bed in the late night hours of the 20th or the early morning hours of the 21st. She then allegedly buried his body, or at least that's what she told the informant. And then, after cleaning up the scene, she allegedly removed the items from the house and destroyed them in order to cover up the crime. Now, that's one way to get arrested and charged with premeditated murder. Jennifer is currently being held without bail. As of this recording, Matthew's body has yet to be recovered. The couple's 3 children, ages 11, 7, and 5, are now in the care of relatives. The Cottonwood Heights, Utah Police Department did issue a statement regarding the arrest and murder. In the statement, they focused on the children, saying that these kind of tragic events tear apart the fabric of families, and they said their thoughts are with them during this difficult time. Okay, I'm going to be watching this case, mostly for the recovery of Matthew's body. I really hope for his family that does happen. And also the details of who was the informant, and is that evidence strong enough to actually keep Jennifer in jail? We'll just have to see. And finally today, let's talk about a pastor that has now bonded out of jail despite being charged with first-degree murder. Now we have to head back to May of 2022 when 47-year-old Matthew Dedman shot 57-year-old Joe Newbern in Ozark, Missouri. Now here's what happened on that day. Matthew, who is a Baptist pastor, was out and about on that spring day when he spotted his wife with another man at a restaurant in the Ozark Courthouse Square. It's in the historic downtown district. Enraged by what he saw, Matthew grabbed a gun and shot Joe multiple times in the chest. He then walked back to his truck and placed the gun inside. When first responders arrived, paramedics immediately transported Joe to the Cox South Hospital, and they got to work questioning Matthew. During that time, they found the gun in the truck, and Matthew was hauled off to jail. And Joe, well, he died from his gunshot wounds just minutes after arriving at the hospital. Now, pretty quickly, Matthew was charged with murder and also armed criminal action. And for more than 2 years, he has remained jailed without bond. The case, not surprisingly, has been slow to proceed due to discovery battles and motions about various witnesses that have been called to testify. Also important to note is the same judge has presided over the case from the very beginning. Judge Laura Johnson initially refused bond to Matthew, despite writing that several factors might make him less likely to run. Some of those factors included strong family ties in the area and his low financial resources, as well as his lack of criminal history. But Judge Johnson did cite that Matthew might hightail it out of town because he didn't think what he did was wrong, and in her words, not serious. She also wrote that his willingness to discharge a weapon in a crowded community square made it more likely that he would be a grave danger to the public. Well, that no bond ruling has stood for the last 28 months. That was until last week, when abruptly Judge Johnson reversed herself and went from no bond to a $30,000 bond. Matthew could be released from jail on the condition that he must wear a GPS and that he also must remain on house arrest. So what caused her to switch after 2 years? Well, Matthew's defense team said that the Missouri Constitution states he deserves bond since he was not being charged with capital murder. The filing also squarely placed the blame on the prosecutors for dragging this whole trial out, saying they have drugged their feet on discovery and supplying witnesses. So the defense's motion was granted by the judge. But here's the strange thing. Matthew's still in jail. He has not been able to supply the $30,000 bond, at least as of this recording. Now, this has many people in the area shaking their heads about the ruling. I want to know what you think. I love to find these obscure situations and get your opinion on them. I also don't want to miss the opportunity to remember Joe. His family said he loved cars, especially Cadillacs, and he was handy with electronics as well. He somehow figured out how to get cable without paying. His family said he could build a bike better than Schwinn and a hot rod car that could compete with NASCAR. He was the father to 7 children. Well, that's your Thursday episode of Rise in Crime. Thanks for joining me here on the podcast or the YouTube version, whichever one you're listening to. I always say it, I have the best listeners out there, and thank you so much for helping this podcast grow. Please refer it to a friend. And here we love 5-star reviews and positive comments. Go ahead and like and follow us on all of our social media and YouTube accounts that we have here at Ono Media. That's Into the Dark, Murder with My Husband, and of course, Rise in Crime. Join me again on Monday for more morning crime news. I'm Mama Jules, and keep safe out there.